Whenever you're ready.
How many times have you been talking with a friend or a relative and then they suddenly say something like, you know Hillary Clinton is a lizard, right? And you might kind of think to yourself, okay, is this person stupid? Did I misjudge them? But the truth is, they're not stupid. They've been manipulated by algorithms that create schizophrenic echo chambers, and they and everyone else who affects don't even realize this is happening. The effects of this are dire. Just ask the World Economic Forum, who in 2024 listed misinformation and disinformation as the #1 risk to mankind. Online lies have real-world consequences. This is not an easy issue to solve, but it is possible. Encouraging critical thinking in schools and regulating algorithms would lead to a more honest internet. But to understand where misinformation comes from, we must first understand the system that rewards it. Companies protect their algorithms as their private and prized property. We know hardly anything about these algorithms. They know everything about us. Because what we do know is that companies use data harvesting techniques to create a highly personalized feed for every single user. Business Apps provides us with a graph that shows us the profits of the major social media companies in 2024. This business has been very profitable for them. These numbers are in the billions. Algorithms, now that we know how algorithms work, we can talk about how they lead to misinformation. You see, the great thing about beliefs is that you can change them in light of new information or evidence. But when your ideas are constantly reinforced, repetition effect says that you will believe them just because of that. Schools don't teach people to think critically about this. Critical thinking, which we'll define as the ability to deeply analyze an argument for what it is and form an opinion on it. Katie Lovelace argues in her 2024 textbook on critical thinking that schools often utilize what she calls low-level thinking, like with standardized tests, which use memorization of basic facts and skills with clear rules to define them. But evidence-based learning, as it is, often ignores cognitive conflict, logic, reasoning, morals, and creativity, which are often the skills needed to fight misinformation. So now that we know how this was caused, we can talk about the effects of this. Fear and confusion leads to increased anxiety. Rocha and colleagues in a 2021 study in Springer Journal of Medical Health found that the effects of false news are all anxiety or some form of it. Literally every single study they analyzed. But beyond mental health, misinformation also erodes trust in public health organizations. Such was the case with measles vaccines. Exposition Andrew Wakefield published a study in a credible scientific journal with a hypothesis that autism was directly correlated with the measles vaccine. However, after scientists couldn't replicate his data, they found that not only did he falsify data, he also was paid off by lawyers to make the claim. However, the consequences of this already happened. Hussein and colleagues find in a 2018 medical article that 22,000 cases of measles popped up in France from 2008 to 11, hundreds of hospitalizations, and a couple deaths. Misinformation leads to worse mental and physical health and, in some cases, death. So, what can we do to solve this? Well, most people just recommend stronger content moderation. And all of these are private companies that have the right to enforce whatever speech policy they want. More speech regulation would feed paranoia rather than quell it. So instead, I propose solutions that would let users keep their freedom of speech while also eventually limiting misinformation. If the root of the issue is algorithms, then to combat their problems, we could ask for laws that would require data harvesting and algorithm techniques to be fully disclosed to the public. Users should be able to opt out of or be warned of personalized feeds. The law, Transparency and Accountability Act, sought to do just this. However, this law is not perfect. It will require that companies share all their data with citizens and the public, which could veer into government-controlled media. However, algorithms with less echo chamber traits would arguably lead to to less misinformation, as we established. So a tweaked version of the law could do just this. But to add to this, people should be better prepared to deal with misinformation, which we could do by updating school curriculums for the modern era. If standardized testing is necessary, testing could use critical thinking-based questions instead of just evidence-based. That way, teachers could teach both kinds of thinking. Although this won't fix the issue for adults, it will greatly help our future, which, as we know, lies with our children. Because understanding a good argument is essential to fighting misinformation. To conclude, misinformation stems from algorithms that create echo chambers that feed into users' delusion. As a consequence, users' mental and physical health have suffered. But we can combat this. By keeping social media in check and employing critical thinking in schools, the internet could be a more